Houdini, we can make as many geometry nodes or as many nodes inside of our geometry nodes as we want, okay? So, and the interface will start to make sense throughout the day. We're not going to dwell on the interface or anything, okay? So, here in this example we're going to do, I started with a single geometry node like we just did. I called it brick, okay? So if you have a geometry node, just type whatever name you want just by clicking on the words, okay? And this brick, I did a few operations to it. Start with the box, and I just left it standard box size. Then this starts off as a really, really big box, okay? This box is 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter. And if we try to simulate that, we're gonna get drastically different physics than if we try to simulate something that's this size. Okay, so if we're wondering, if we try to do an example, why our brick wall looks like it's like a city falling down, it's probably the size of our geometry that we're working with, okay? So here, these are actually the standard US dimensions for a red brick, okay? So I'll just leave this up and we can copy that, okay? So transformed it to that. And then here, notice this brick is kind of in the middle of the world axis. And when I think of a brick, I always think of a brick as like sitting on something, resting on something. So here, I just moved it up to sit on the ground, but this is actually trickier than it looks. Here we're going to use our first expression. What it takes is translating it up in Y, but how much do we translate it up in Y to where it rests exactly on the ground? And for that, I can use what's called a local variable. Does anybody know what a local variable is?
Variable that exists within the same namespace that you are currently.
Yes, as a matter of fact, that's exactly what a local variable is. Okay, so in Houdini, our namespace would be a node. Okay, now each of these nodes is kind of like a self-contained program. It takes stuff in, it spits stuff out. It has local variables that you can use to grab bits of useful information that you can use. So here, I'm going to right-click and go to Help. And when we're learning Houdini, you know, on our own this week or whatever, this is where I would go. And I still go here almost every day, all right? So here, it tells me all about this transform surface node. And actually, it's really fun to learn Houdini this way because I don't have to search and say, okay, what operation am I trying to do? And maybe this help pertains to it. If I'm using a node in Houdini and I go to help, I'm going to get help for exactly that node. It's pretty intuitive. All right, so here it tells me all about the parameters and stuff. And now down here it has local variables. So in this transform node, I can grab the centroid, which is the middle in space, okay? I can grab the minimums and maximums, or I can grab the size. So pretty handy, huh, for applying operations to our box. So to translate this guy to make it sit on the ground, notice I'm bypassing and unbypassing. Okay, I just used negative y minimum. All right, so the y minimum is somewhere down here. I don't care where it is. I just know it's down there. To move it up, I would negate that and just type negative y min in there. Okay. So a box, size it right, make it rest on the ground plane. Now, this node is different. It's got a different little logo on it, for one. It also says something different up here. Up here it says null. So, does anyone know from like Nuke or other programming or anything like that what a null is? The idea of a null. Yes? Oh, you're scratching your head. What's a null?
It's just a point in space, isn't it? Really? Like
Yeah.
I've only really used it to manipulate on the axis.
Okay. Cool. Anyone else want to add anything to that, or?
Null is kind of what it sounds like. It doesn't have any set properties of its own. It's just there to transfer properties of other things so that you can use it.
Yeah. Null is just like a passing through. Okay. So notice that on my box, I have parameters for size and center and points and polygon types and stuff like that. It says box up here. On my transform, I have other things in here, rotation, scale order, point normals, stuff like that. But on my null, I don't have anything really. Just ignore that one. That's not generally used for, much. But yeah, on this guy, we don't have any parameters. The only point in this really is to give it a good name and make sure we know what's connected to it. And it's actually one of the most important nodes in Houdini, because when we're building procedural networks, we rely on good points of exchange between various ideas and networks that we build. Okay, there's nothing worse than opening up a scene and having no idea, nothing's labeled, things are like referenced all over the place, and for however much power Houdini has, it can also become a train wreck. Okay, if we don't keep our scenes good and organized. All right. So
just a question.
Yes.
on organization. So I've noticed you've broken out into multiple operations where you like theoretically we could have all just jammed that into the first box operator.
Yes.
So is this common workflow etiquette when working with Houdini to like separate out tasks?
Depends on the TD.
Okay.
So some TDs like to work with. TD is technical director, by the way. Okay. Some TDs like to work in the bare minimum, simplest as possible series of operations, and the way their network flows is that's what they consider to be organized. Especially for teaching, I would consider a clear series of steps to be the most organized approach. If this were a 5-minute job, I probably would have done it in one box myself.
Okay.
So it really depends on how much time you have to throw your network together, how organized you want it to be. Is it a template that other people are going to have to use? Is it just for yourself? There's a lot of things we have to consider when we build an effect. Okay, so box, make it a brick scale proportions, move it up, and a null with and I always label all my nulls output, and then after the output, I label what it is. That's just what I do. Other people do. They might just call it out. Okay, so yeah, that's our brick, and I'll leave this this scale up here for you guys. I want to show you a little bit about the next step as well. So here we're taking this brick, and we're going to build, for our first example, we're just build a wall out of it. Okay. There we go.
Are there multiple operations under that copy technique?
Why, yes, there are. This is what we're going to do next. Pretty simple still. Our lessons throughout the day are going to increase in complexity. So this is the second example. And this is the third example. All right, notice how they subtly increased in complexity. So we're going to try to get through all that today, all right, guys? All right. But this first example should be pretty simple. So once we have our brick, we want to just leave this and never touch it again. All right. This would be reminiscent of getting geometry from, say, a modeler. Now, where this brick came from, what they did with the normals and the vertices, we don't know, we don't care. We know we have to use this brick. All right. So in my system that will depend on this brick, I'm not going to go and try to manipulate this brick directly. I'm going to make a new object. Okay. And I'm going to merge that brick into this object. And it could be merging in a character. We're going to, do some magical effect to, or it could be merging in a car that we're going to smash or something like that. Okay. So in object here, I'm going to type in the path to that brick. And notice I can clearly tell which one I should use. If I didn't have nodes here, I might, okay, which one should I use? Should I use that? What does that mean? You know, you forget your own networks, believe me. So here, I'm gonna merge in my output. There we go, and I brought in my brick to another object. If I did like this, it would be my original box. Okay. Do you guys want to take a guess as to how this, what this lingo in here means? You guys see that? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So is Houdini like stashing this in a database as you create things? Is it loading up the drive location, or is that just the way it handles it for typing the path inside of it?
All right. Yeah. What is it here? Like, has anyone like done any like DOS or Linux or read a file off a disk in Nuke or?
It's going to your root node, your root directory, and then tapping out an absolute path from there.
Yeah. So our root would be this guy, right? It's actually a hierarchy within the program. Okay. So Houdini, since it's a node-based program, it functions in a hierarchy. All right. So this is our root, and if I go way up here. And in earlier versions of Houdini, you used to actually be able to go to a step above. You actually be able to see the root, even though there wasn't much purpose of that. And I don't know how to even see the root in this version anymore. I don't think you can. But anyway, you have like object and a few other things, a few other contexts we'll learn about later. Here I'm at object level right now. If I go into this brick, now I'm at object brick. And then if I get this guy, I'm at object brick output brick base geo, separated by slashes. Okay? So, and if I were to merge that in, I would simply type that object brick and output brick base geo. Okay, does everybody kind of get what's happening there? See, so I merged the output of this network into this object merge node of this new network. Okay, so a lot of stuff there. Let me recap and we're going to try it. All right, so first, and I'll leave this up, we're going to build a brick. So box, translate it to this scale. Or yeah, transform it to the scale. Translate it up by the Y minimum and make a null for the output. Then in another object merge the result of that network into it. You guys got that? I'll be around to help. Okay, let's try it out. I'll leave the proportions up. There we go.